Fans of a Horus Heresy, Warhammer 40,000 and enough plasma to flatten an entire city block, thank you very much for joining me for an out-of-the-pack review of the Warlord Titan Sunfury Plasma Annihilator by Forge World. I say this is an out-of-the-pack review. This isn't quite a true out-of-the-pack review because I've had this kit for quite a while now and I've actually unboxed it, done quite a lot of work with it, etc, etc. This isn't a true unboxing in the way that I normally do them, whereby I open it when I've got it. I've never looked in it before and you get an honest reaction to what I've bought. However, I am starting to work again on my Warlord, and before I start assembling these I thought it'd be interesting to show you them. I'm going to start with this one, the Sunfury Plasma Annihilator. This is one of 3 arm weapon options available on the Warlord at the moment. There's the original Bellicosa Volcano Cannon, and then there's this one, the Plasma Annihilator, and then there's the Ariok Power Claw as well, which we're taking a look at in a separate review of the other 2 weapons. What we're going to do today is I'm going to show you what's in the box, show you the kit. I'm also then going to tell you a bit of a story about the slightly difficult birth this model actually had at the Forge World end, and show you an interesting little artifact of how we can see that in the actual model. Let's start off by opening it up. I just forget what this costs. I think it costs £85 for this kit, and it comes in one of these what I'd call large size white boxes from Forge World. So we'll put that to one side. Right, in the box we get the instructions for the Plasma Annihilator, which is this weapon here. So it's an arm weapon, it can't go on the carapace. And for those of you who like a bit of fluff, well, there you go, have a pause and have a read. I really like this gun. This was the weapon I was really waiting for on the Warlord Titan, much more so than the Bellicosa Volcano Cannon. I like this Plasma Annihilator. Right, you get a series of components, as we can see in the diagram there. We get the usual description, and this is one of the newer generation where we have these CAD designed instructions. It shows you how to build it, and it takes you all the way through to the completion. So get those. Now we're going to come back to that because there's something important in there about the story of this kit. What we'll do now is we'll unpack the parts. As I said, I've done quite a lot of work on this kit, so most of the parts are off for keys and I've cleaned them up. I'll try to articulate as best I can how much cleanup was required. Just bear that in mind. Right, so what should we start with? Well, let's get this lump of parts out, and hiding within the bubble wrap was a series of barrel components and this very hefty piece of resin, which is a main weapon housing. Start off by taking a look at this. This is, as far as resin parts go, this is one of the largest and most complex geometries I've seen Forge World do. Yeah, so it's you've got to give them credit for attempting and pulling off something like this because it is a huge and complicated piece. It's not quite perfect, there are some issues. Yeah, overall it's very good, and this example was well cast. Now this entire kit was a replacement kit because the original one I sent had a lot of casting faults, and when I contacted Forge World they very kindly replaced the whole thing for me. So this was the second one which was in good condition. Let's have a look at the detail. So as you can probably see, there is absolutely stacks of detail on this part. Despite the Warlord being a heck of a big kit, the biggest kit they've ever done, they haven't skimped on the amount of detail that they're packing in. Bits and pieces of cleanup which I've done, there's some that I'm still working on. There are a couple of distortion issues on this part, and you can see it from here. You can see this studded plate here is bowed inwards. I mean, that's supposed to be square, and that's because of distortion in the casting process from the mold. Likewise, we can see the same thing here at the back. And I've seen the original master of this, or the first production model that they showed off at the original shows, and on those they were straight. So this is distortion that's happened in production. That said, unlike some kits, it's pretty hidden from view here, and by the time this is mounted on the Warlord like so, it's not really noticeable. So, you know, kind of get away with it. A bit of pitting here, clean up too. Again, there's another bow in here with this distortion here. That doesn't matter too much. A very big piece and a complicated piece. Right, now let's look at what makes up the barrel of the Sunfury Plasma Annihilator. So this is the core of the gun. And this is an absolutely fantastic piece in terms of the detail and the concept. And it was beautifully cast as well, absolutely perfect. What we then get are 4 of these, or there's two slightly different ones. This is the first one, and then you've got these huge plasma coils, and then obviously some sort of firing or barrel part, lots more detail, and then you've got this kind of block here. And what these do is these arrange around this core to make the barrel, and it goes like this, and it's been done in a really impressive way, and the detail that runs throughout the whole thing is absolutely stunning. You can see that's how it goes. And if I am careful, I have to be careful, so I don't want to drop this and break it all. Those are eventually going to build around the core like that. There's a little bit of heat work to do, maybe a touch just to get some of the fits spot on, but again, like the core, these outers were all very well cast indeed, and as a whole, absolutely brilliant looking gun. And then that cross is going to then click into there, and there is the main weapon. Fantastic. Now, sticking with the main weapon, before I put this precipitously held bunch of barrel parts away, I'll just show you this piece here, which is the main nozzle. That then is just going to drop in there, and there you go. And while we're on it, main nozzle, yeah, that was beautifully cast, very nice. A little bit of trim. I think there's a tiny seam to take away, but no big deal. Right, so let's set these out. The other really large component that came in this kit is this thing, which is kind of like, I don't know, maybe the power bank or the capacitor for this enormous gun. I guess this is it, and you imagine these are power cables that then feed into the weapon. And what this does is this is going to attach on like so. I need to do a bit of heat bending, I think, because this just needs to be a bit this way, but not too much. There's some quite significant cleanup to do on this example, and you can see it running along here where we've got a bit of mould seamage that's run into this, along these very fine details. I can't help but think this is slightly sloppy on the mould design. You really wanted this seam going actually along this edge. They just missed. You know, you're just asking for trouble if you put a mould seam running across details like this. Now, this one isn't too bad and I can fix it. The first one I had was an absolute mess. These things are all over the place. One to watch out for if you do buy this model. That aside, absolutely fantastically detailed piece. Got all these power cables. Now they've got these shims. Well, not shims, they're actually blanked off gates. I'm not quite decided yet if I've got the patience to cut all of those away. We'll see. It would look brilliant if I do it, but it's going to take a few hours of work just to do that. We then get a small bag, and in no particular order we'll go through these. Well, we'll do the significant bits first. We have this, which is this large power coupling, and that attaches there like so. And then what you have is these two. If we get our capacitor back again, this is even more hand Jenga required. This one's got a bit of a firmer hold. There you go. I'll just do it on the one side. So that then connects up like that, and I have to give it to them. Given the complex geometry of the part, there's a fantastic fit there. This part has got quite a complex geometry, and that goes through in the casting. This example, which is the second and the better of the two that I had some big mould slips around here. And I've done some of the work to correct it, but you can still see how it's not quite there yet. And what I found is that the severity of a slip decreased the further down the power cables I went. Now, the original one of these was a horrendous mess again. There were some shocking offsets on these. Got some voids to fill. The voids are fine, they're easy enough to sort out. If you do get this kit, this is another part just to check to make sure everything's lined up properly. I suppose it's one of those things, it's a very ambitious part in terms of its design. And with this I can see it's difficult to cast it. And then just to return to these conduits, these are beautiful details. You've got a bank of 6 power cables that come to a convergence, one on each side. Again, these are parts that had really significant offsets on my original kit, so one to watch when you actually buy yours, or if you're going to buy one, should I say. The next piece is a nice chunky one, which is this, and this is kind of the plasma flask, and that clips on under there. You remember I said I thought I needed to do some heat bending, where you can actually see what I think I need to do. You can see there's a bit of a gap, and I think that's supposed to be closed up. That'll be quite easy to sort. And then onto that, we've got these 3 plasma flasks, and each one of those is going to click on like so. And you've got a bank of 3. These are all well cast in this kit. No issues. It is a part. My original example, again, had some really, really bad mold offsets, so one to check to make sure those are lined up properly, because the mold split runs across some very fine detail on that, and if you get an offset, it'd be difficult to put right. This part was pretty okay, got an air bubble there, no big deal. If I'm really particular, a little bit of filling to do in between the flask mounts, but no biggies. And again, the continuation of the very high levels of detail that this kit consistently shows. This boss type device mounts onto here. That's really finely detailed. Not cleaned all that up yet. There's still a fair bit to do. Got an air bubble to fill. There's this piece here, which is perhaps part of a targeting system, and that sits here on the final assembled weapon. There's these 2 little secondary cables that go somewhere. Can't remember where they go. Casting wise, these look great. A little bit of mold seemed to clean up, but the important place is on the actual cables, and that's nicely done. And what I did have is they'd sent me 2 left-hand side pipes as opposed to a left and a right. That's another thing to check, because these do have a handedness and not symmetrical for either side. So make sure you get one for each side. And then the final parts in this big old kit are these 2, which are barrel supports. Casting wise, these are nice. There's a bit of seam to clean up along them, but nothing that can't be sorted out. You can tell that these are pretty warped. They've been taken out too soon to be fully set. Warp parts don't really bother me on Forge World kits because they're very easy to put right with a bit of hot water. In particular, these will be an absolute doddle. That doesn't bother me, however, making sure your alignment on the mould along the length of it is more important in my view. And those are all the parts of the Sunfury Plasma Annihilator. It's a great kit. It looks fantastic. Detail is absolutely brilliant. For me, the detailing on this weapon is so much more intricate than the Bellicosa volcano cannons, which look good, and they're in theme and they've got the right sort of style. I just love the look of big plasma weapons. And if you want kind of like a thematic feel or an artistic feel for what this gun was like, anyone who remembers John Blanche's original sketch of the Imperial Guard, the Necromundan Imperial Guard advancing, and in the background there's a Titan firing its plasma weapon and spewing globs of plasma onto the traitors they're fighting. That's what I always imagine with this. So this example is good. There's quite a lot of cleanup to do, but in terms of where it counts, it's been well cast. So I was certainly happy with this. And certainly Forge World, were very good with sorting out the issue I had with the original example. Oh, and then the other thing about this model, and I can tell already before I built it, is this is a lot easier to put together, in my view, than the Bellicosa volcano cannon. I mentioned that this kit had a bit of a history, and the history goes all the way back to the Horus Heresy Weekender from 2016. So this was at the start of February. And I went to that event, and I was very excited to go to that event because I'd heard rumours that they were going to be releasing some weapon options for the Warlord Titan. And I'd bought my Titan the previous year when it was released. But I'd kind of like been holding off on doing the build project because I wanted, in terms of weapons, I wanted the plasma cannon and then the missile launchers, none of which were available at release. So when I went along on the day, and I was in the queue, handed out these beautiful brochures for the day, I opened it up and very quickly had a flick through to the What's New page. I was absolutely thrilled to bits when I got to this page here and I saw this. Picture of a Warlord Titan, Forge World available today. Warlord Titan Sunfury Plasma Annihilator and the Ariok Power Claw and the Lucius Pattern Head. So it was a great day for Warlord people. So brilliant. I hopped in the queue. I mean, I was there really early. You have to be at these events for early release items because sometimes I may only have, a dozen examples. So I went and I queued up, and when I'd been served, when I was asking for what I'd like, I got the Ariok Power Claw. They had that, and that's a kit I'm going to do a separate review on. Lucky to get an early release Power Claw, so that's a fantastic kit. I then asked for this one as well, the Sunfury Plasma Annihilator. The guy went off, and bless him, he searched high and low and as much as he could, and he couldn't find it, and he said he didn't know what was happening. So what I did is, because I was really keen to get it, I placed an order for it. And it was one of the reasons, for going to these early events to get hold of these kits. So I put an order in for it on the Saturday. When I went back on the Sunday, their salespeople had had a chance to chat with the production people, and it turned out that this kit wasn't actually available on that day. Instead, they said they expected it was going to be about a month until it was released. So I said, okay, fine. Because I wanted it, I left my order in and I thought, great. So time went by. I think it was around maybe somewhere 4 to 6 weeks after the event, I got contacted by Forge World to say that there'd been a significant delay with producing this model kit. And they were very apologetic, and they basically offered to refund the kit or give me a gesture of goodwill if I kept the order in place. So I kept the order in place, and they very generous. They gave a very generous gesture of goodwill, which was an example of Forge World customer service at their best. 1 month became 2, 2 months became 3, 3 became 4, and I think it was around sometime in late May I got the kit through. I don't know what had happened, but it was basically 5 months late. I have a sneaking suspicion that there had been some problems with their production people, because I know that the Mastodon transport also got very delayed, and they had to redesign some of the parts. And this kit actually has some evidence of the redesign that must have taken place. And I don't know why they redesigned it. It might have been for cost reasons, because they reduced the number of parts. And let me show you how I know this. So if we go back to our instructions, we can see that the main body of the Plasma Annihilator is made up of, well, the main body. Then there is a plasma injector, 2 plasma feed pipes, a cowling left and a cowling right, and then the reaction ignition. So all this is here, but of course in this final model the parts have been redesigned, and the main body, cowling right and left, have been merged into a single piece. I've not built this is exactly as it came. If we look at the plasma injector and the feed pipes, again we have a single piece. So that's a plasma injector. Now there's feed pipes. Now I think they kind of got away with combining the number of parts on this bit, but on this I don't think it worked as well, because the mold slippage that was occurring on this, even this better example, I still think they should have cast this as 2 separate bits. Then there was a final part, which is this thing here, the reaction ignition, which was also combined into this main body. They've redesigned the kit and reduced the number of parts by 1, 2, 3, 4. Most of it's merging this into one. I don't know if that actually tells us why the kit was late being released. Was it because they had to redesign it for economic purposes? I suspect so. I think they've redesigned this to make it cheaper to produce by combining the parts into a smaller number, because the number of parts really drives the cost in Forge World models quite significantly, as opposed to the amount of resin. If you look at the realm of battle boards compared to a set of Space Marine weapon accessories, you've got a very clear demonstration of that. So as well as being a cool kit and a great weapon option for the Warlord Titan, it's also a bit of evidence in terms of what was going on in Forge World at the time, and the whole story around the delay of this kit is very interesting as well. And the other example I know of this era was around the Mastodon tank. Anyone who's bought a Mastodon tank, and I know I've seen the kit, you've got 2 large track units that attach onto either side of a hull, and they're a single piece, and they're a big single piece. Originally they were designed to be separate pieces, and I found this out through chatting to various people. They had to go back and redesign it to create it as a single piece, and I presume the reason for doing that is around reducing the cost of production. And maybe they were finding that they had too many parts in these kits and it was becoming economically unviable to make them. I don't know. So there you go, a review of the biggest plasma weapon ever made for 40k, certainly at 28mm scale. A great kit and an interesting little story as well to go with it. That's all I really wanted to say about this kit. I'd like to hear what you think about it, in terms of what do you think of it as a weapon, how do you like it compared to the other Titan weapons, do you think it's good or not so good? And did you have a similar experience with early orders of this kit or any other models in the year 2016? As always, I'll be very interested to hear. But other than that, I'd just like to say thank you very much for watching. I'll speak to you next time, and goodbye.